Breaking news tonight, Diddy, no bond. After evidence comes out in court about freak-offs, basically sex abuse sessions that last for days and days, leaving the victims needing IV drips. Good evening, I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called
freak-offs. Freak-offs? Freak-offs? Freak-offs.
Freak-offs.
Sean Puffy Combs, a.k.a. Diddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy, I'll see you in court. Sean Puffy Combs spending the night behind bars and whining incessantly through his lawyers. But as we go to air right now, we are analyzing evidence that has come out in court. You know what? After the judge heard this, he had a snowball's chance in HELL of getting bond. I mean, you got to know this. All the judges, they all have lunch together in a big room, sometimes the law library. Their court clerks are in there. They see each other day in, day out. How is this judge going to look at the other judges in the eye and go, yeah, I gave Diddy a bond. That was me in there because I don't have a spine. Now listen to this. This is what I learned in court. Now, we've all seen the Cassie Ventura video of her running away from Sean Combs in public in a hotel corridor. He comes out practically butt naked, wearing nothing but a towel. He doesn't care. That doesn't bother him. So entitled. Chases her down and beats the HELL out of her, kicking her, dragging her. Listen to this. We have gotten a hold of, through prosecutors, texts that he immediately sends her. Listen to this. To Cassie, call me. The cops are here. I got 6 kids. Yo, please call. I'm surrounded. You gonna abandon me all alone? You're gonna abandon me all alone? This as we are learning that Cassie Ventura was running from a freak off. Yeah, there was a sex worker in the room with Diddy, and I guarantee he was trying to film it. The sex worker forcing Cassie to have sex. The defendant, according to prosecutor Emily Johnson, knew he had done something that could elicit police response. Well, that's a nice way of saying he getting busted, okay? So she texts back saying she still had horrible bruising from the assault. Says, I'm not a rag doll. Now, I want to point out that they are now, the defense attorney, desperate, is now saying Cassie Ventura was running away because she was jealous. She was jealous because she looked at Combs' phone and saw he texted another woman. Right, she's so jealous she runs out barefoot, trying to get away from him and the sex worker that was still in the room. Let's just start with that. Okay, what judge in his or her right mind can go sit down to his tuna fish sandwich and eat lunch with the other judges looking at him going, yeah, we know what you did. You let this a-hole out on bond. Listen to this.
Sean Combs is back inside the walls of Metropolitan Detention Center after U.S. District Judge Andrew Carter Jr. denied Combs' appeal of his remand. Magistrate Judge Robin F. Tarnowski initially denied the rapper's bail Tuesday, saying that Combs was a danger. Quote, I don't know that you can trust yourself not to harm people. The defense proposed that Combs live at home, alone, in Florida, monitored by a 24/7 security team. Combs offered to give up any access to his cell phone or internet. In the end, Judge Carter Jr. agreed with Judge Tarnowski that, quote, there is no condition or combination of conditions to ensure he will not obstruct justice or tamper with witnesses.
Combs desperate not to spend another night behind bars. With me, an all-star panel to make sense of what we are learning. But now, hear this.
energy and all of his might and the full confidence of his lawyers, and I expect a long battle with a good result for Mr. Combs.
Do you think he'll be released?
I'm going to fight like hell to get him released, and he should be released with all that he's done and coming here voluntarily. And guys, I'm going to cut it short because I have to go in. All right. So thank you all very much, and I'll keep you all posted.
That defense lawyer's making his money. Agnefello, very wily. He just represented Rainier in the cult case, also a forced sex case that unfolded with a sex cult where people were actually branding themselves. Okay, that's a whole nother can of worms. But there he is out in front of the courthouse steps talking about the fight he's got, and boy, does he have a fight. Again, with me, an all-star panel, but first I want to go to veteran trial lawyer Tim Jansen, also a former federal prosecutor, important here, and legal analyst for the Tallahassee Democrat. Tim, that was quite a, as they call it, bail package the defense put up for the judge, begging, please, judge, don't make me go to jail. Don't make me spend another night eating a bad sandwich. $50 million? And Diddy, I promise not to contact another woman. Okay, right. Tell me what went wrong.
Well, I felt dirty hearing the proposed bond conditions. $50 million. Go home. The judge was never going to give bond. The violence you saw in that video by the elevator, he should have been arrested and charged with that offense. The fact that he contacted her and it was obstructing justice. The fact that he showed up or came back to not flee from these charges means nothing. I mean, you look at the amount of money they offered for bond. They knew he wasn't getting bond. He's looking at 15 years to life in prison. He's a danger to himself. He's a danger to the community. And the crimes outlined in this indictment are horrendous.
Jansen, I know that you know what you're talking about. Former federal prosecutor, that's not easy. I was a Fed for 3 years. I know the way feds work. But I can tell you something. You don't want to get out there and say that again, that Combs is a danger to himself. Combs is not going to hurt himself. What Combs is going to do is try to flee somewhere like Paris, where they're hiding out Roman Polanski and others, and record from there just like Kanye, okay? That's what Combs is going to do. He's not going to hurt one hair on his head. That's not happening. But I agree with you. I didn't feel dirty. I felt crazy mad when I heard about a $50 million bond package. And you know, a lot of judges, Jansen, you know there are a lot of judges that would have done that if nobody was watching. But not this judge.
You know, the other thing you have to look at, they offered not only his passport, the passports of all of his family members, because everyone knows he's going to flee and take his family with him. That was another little tip that they
you know, if he cared so much about his family, he would be with them and not at Freakoffs. You know what? If I were a drinker, I'd have a big fat drink right now based on what you just said. Take his family with him, my rear end. Joining me, Dr. Bethany Marshall. Usually I don't go to you this early in the game, Dr. Bethany, but really cared about his family. You know what? If he cared about his family, he would be living with his family or having joint custody with his children if it didn't work out with the wife or the mother. That did not happen. No family man, yeah, they all have to go to work, they have to go out of town, is going to be conducting days on end of freak-offs where the women have to go hide out for days on end so their bruises can heal. Half of them have to take IV drugs, IV fluids after. They're covered in bruises. They've been drugged. They don't know what was happening. That is not a family man, Dr. Bethany.
Nancy, P. Diddy, a.k.a. Love, is no family man. Let me tell you, he is self-centered, vain, sociopathic, petty, vindictive, callous, cold, immature, and he leveraged all of these traits not into building a better family and having loving relationships with them. He leveraged these traits into an empire so that he could control other people. Nancy, you were mentioning, fleeing to another country. P. Diddy is so arrogant, so self-assured, so unaware of potential negative consequences that when both of his mansions were raided, he didn't leave the country. He thought he could manipulate law enforcement just like he manipulated his victims. And now he's trying to manipulate through his attorney. He's going to be in for a rude shock, Nancy, when he's behind bars. 1,000 bottles of lubricant is never going to allow him to slip out of this one.
Lynn Shaw is with me right now. Anybody on the panel? Irv Brandt is with us. Sydney Sumner, Angelica Martinez, Servina. Lynn Shaw is joining me, founder, executive director, Lynn's Warriors, devoted to stopping sex trafficking. You know why I'm so angry right now? And people often say, why don't you smile on TV? Are they crazy? You know, I'm so angry right now, Lynn. I'm angry because I have dealt very closely. And hey, everybody, look around. 1 out of 4 women you may never suspect, have been molested or sex assaulted. They have. 1 in 4, at the least. That's a conservative number. I have dealt with so many girls and women that are never the same. Now, let's get real. We're talking about a freak off like it's kind of funny. It's not. Imagine a woman who is drugged in her drink. She thinks she's going to a nice party, right? She's excited. Sean Combs wants to invite her to a party with all these important, fancy people and maybe even giving her a nice, beautiful outfit, designer clothes to wear. She's never seen anything like it in her life. This party where there's caviar, there's champagne, there's limos, there's fur, diamonds, you name it. And she's there. She's at the party, rubbing elbows with all these hip-hop music stars, you name it. Maybe J-Lo's there. Maybe 50's there. I don't know. Maybe Justin Bieber's there. Maybe Ashton Kutcher's there. And there she is, okay? But what happens after the party, all the celebs may not know about that. Neither does she, because she's drugged. What do you think those lights and those video cameras were for? You know how awful it is for a woman to be, what she lives through the rest of her life. And then to find out that it was on video and you were posed in positions and people were videoing parts of your body and your face while you're getting in all sorts of positions. That is what we're talking about, Lynn. And not just one woman, many women. Those are the allegations.
You know, Nancy, I want to start with, I wonder what his mama thinks about all of this. And he's also a father of daughters. I had to put my glasses on today because I can't see straight, I kid you not, about this whole scenario. We work with victims day in and day out of sex trafficking, sexual exploitation, online exploitation. This case in the last 2 days has made me so sick. I had to put a yellow blouse on today to tell myself, you know what, sunshine, perhaps we're going to have justice here. So many women and girls are looking at this case and wondering, we are not talking enough about not only sex workers, prostitutes, as in the indictment, regular girls, naive, underage even, and there were mentions of boys and young men as well. What this does to them, they have post-traumatic stress disorder, how this has ruined, I'm sick from, it's going to be countless lives have been ruined from this, the toll on their bodies, the toll on their minds. What's going on right now? This is despicable. I feel dirty, and I work in this business every single day. And why was this allowed to go on for 4 decades now that we know about, since the early 90s? And all the people around him did nothing because they sold out for $1. And I leave you with, who is Christina Coram, his chief of staff? a woman who started with him around 2013, his right hand, those are his words. She knew all of this. There is always a woman involved with sex trafficking rings and all of these criminal operations to act as the big sister, the mother for all these vulnerable girls and young women. And you know what? It is disgusting. And I've been made sick from all of this. Let us put the focus now on victims and survivors and keep him behind bars.
Music mogul and rap star Sean Diddy Combs hit with lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. But attorneys claim no matter how many suits are filed, Combs is innocent.
Innocent. Okay, he's getting paid plenty of money to say that, but the defense attorney is completely deluded. He is even claiming that Sean Combs, Diddy, has had to go into therapy because of the allegations made against him. Sean Combs is now the victim. Listen.
For a bail appeal hearing, Agnifilo submits an amended bail package. Combs agrees to have no communication with women outside of family members and the mothers of his children, to have no contact with known grand jury witnesses, referring to victim 1, Cassandra Ventura, to use a private intelligence agency to monitor him 24/7. Sage Intelligence will ensure he has no cell phone or internet access, administer weekly drug tests, and turn over a daily visitor's log.
Are they crazy? With me is Irv Brandt, former Senior Inspector, U.S. Marshal Service. Those are the guys that go all around the world to bring back felons for trial or that have absconded. Author of a whole series of books about Solo, last one, Forever Solo, Night of the Dragon. Hey, Irv, really? They're going to have the same security guards protect Diddy that would take these women to hideouts so they could wait till their bruises healed before they went into public. The same ones that got sex workers from all over the world, the country, to come in and rape women that had been drugged on video. Those guys, and they're also going to perform weekly urine tests. You want to tell me they can't go take a leak in a cup and put the name Sean Combs on it? Really? Are they insane? Have you ever heard anything like this bond package?
I have not, Nancy. And it's not surprising that the defense was doing everything they could to convince the judge, because the burden shifted from the prosecution to the defense because of the nature of the charges and how much time that he was facing. So it's obvious that the defense was just coming up with anything that they could think of, any sorts of conditions that might convince the judge to release him on bond, and it just didn't work.
You know, I don't know if you've ever been in court when this happens. Tim Jansen, former Fed, now defense attorney, but I always hated it when the judge would go back to his or her chambers to think. I'm like, hey, after all we just put up, you can't give me a decision right now? What's wrong? There was one case, and this guy turned out to be a future co-defendant of O.J. Simpson's, Charles Ehrlich, a.k.a. Charlie Tuna, on a drug trafficking case. I'll never forget the judge, who I liked up till that moment, goes back to chambers after I put on this giant case, and the defense was trying to get the evidence thrown out. It was a suppression hearing. He goes back in chambers with the defense attorney. I'm like, oh, my stars. So in my world, that's never a good thing if the judge can't make a decision just like that. Did you ever have a doubt that the judge was going to let Diddy go?
Well, no, but I will tell you what the judges do. They brought the pretrial officer back there to determine if they felt comfortable, if there was anything that they could do to convince him, the judge, that he wouldn't flee. And I'm sure the pretrial officer said, Judge, we can't control him once he's gone. GPS does anything when he cuts it off. You can fly anywhere without a passport.
We'll cut it off right at Teterboro. We'll find that ankle monitor, Jansen, on the airstrip at Teterboro as he's getting on that private plane to head to France. there's no way, but judges have done it. They have done it, and there have been disastrous results. Now, while the defense was making all of these offers, begging the judge, the state fired back. I'm so proud of the feds this time. Listen.
Prosecutors detail a violent incident in which Combs and a co-conspirator kidnapped an individual at gunpoint to facilitate breaking into another individual's home. Roughly 2 weeks later, co-conspirators tied to Combs set that homeowner's car on fire by slicing open the convertible top and dropping a Molotov cocktail inside. Multiple witnesses willing to testify that Combs later bragged about the crimes.
Did you hear that, Dr. Bethany Marshall? All of these women know what Combs will do, and that's who the defense wanted out on bond. They slice open the top of a car and drop a Molotov inside. And there are witnesses that saw it, and nothing ever happened. Nothing happened, Bethany.
Nancy, these victims must be terrified. He probably stalks them, calls them, texts them, has his bodyguards reach out to him. He has full, total control over their lives. They probably, he probably makes them terrified that they'll never work again, just like Harvey Weinstein did, that there'll be nothing without him. And Nancy, this is really criminality, what we're seeing with Sean Combs. And unfortunately, the fact that he faced very few consequences emboldened him to increase his criminal enterprise. He's grandiose. He thinks he's at the center of things. And he's petty, mean, and vindictive. And he stalks women and wants to have power over them. So I think that when he faced such few consequences, he just began to grow in his criminality. It just reinforced it. This man can never be out of jail because, Nancy, he probably even stalks his own wives. I'm surprised he's allowed to have contact with them too.
Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. If you're on the go, catch us on your favorite podcast app where you can get all of our content where we, in our own way, seek justice.
Prosecutors detail several of Combs' attempts to silence his accusers. Prosecutors claim Combs and co-conspirators called victims and witnesses, feeding them a false narrative to downplay the alleged abuse. 2 of those late 2023 calls were recorded. In court, attorneys divulged Combs reached out to a female victim twice in 3 days, urging her to say she, quote, willingly engaged in sex acts. Just last week, Combs reached out to former Danity Kane singer in the wake of Dawn Richards' lawsuit. 58 times over 4 days, only relenting when she publicly denied Richards' allegations.
Yet they tell the judge they will not contact witnesses or try to tamper with witnesses. Did you hear what the crimeonline.com investigative reporter just said? Relentlessly pursuing a female witness, trying to change the narrative, that's the new lingo, getting her to say that she willingly engaged in sex acts, calling her 58 times over 4 days, only stopping when she publicly denied a sex attack. Yeah, he's not going to contact a witness. Joining me right now, Angelica Martinez-Servigna, joining us in front of the jail. Angelica, thank you for being with us outside the jail. Tell me about Sean Combs' daily schedule behind bars, and what you know about the jail. Who are other famous celebs that have been in that very jail?
Yes, Nancy, we are standing right behind me is where Sean Puffy Combs is currently being held in Brooklyn right now. This is a federal prison detention facility operated by the Federal Bureau of Prisons. As I said, Sean Puffy Combs is currently being held in this facility. There are reports saying that he's being held in the special housing unit, which is separate from the general prison population and is usually used for inmates that might need additional protection. Ghislaine Maxwell, R. Kelly, when they were here in this prison, they were also held in the special housing unit. Now, the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn has recently and in the past couple of years come under fire for its abhorrent conditions. A federal court judge threatened to vacate an inmate's sentence if he was sent here, citing the conditions as dangerous and barbaric. There have been severe understaffing issues. There's court filings that say as recently as last November, the facility is actually operating at just 55% staffed. So it's not the Bryant Park Hotel that Sean Puffy Combs was arrested on Monday. So
under our jurisprudence, Combs is innocent until proven guilty. But I got to tell you, when the feds lay a trap, they lay a trap. This is a web that's going to be very, very difficult for the fly, that would be Combs, to get out of. Sydney Sunward joining me, crimeonline.com investigative reporter. Sydney, what am I hearing from Angelica Martinez that he is in a special ward? Why is he special? How is he different from all the other rapists in that jail?
Nancy, what we're hearing is that he's in that special housing unit, and I think that just offers an extra level of isolation. There are conflicting reports suggesting he may even be on suicide watch, and we now know that he was actually evaluated by a prison psychologist before he entered the MDC. And Nancy, conditions in this jail are extremely violent. There was a murder just a few months ago back in June, and inmates report that they are in near constant lockdown, confined to their cells for days at a time.
Sydney, when you put 1,000 men all charged with felonies, child molesters, killers, rapists, drug dealers, arms possessors, what do you think is going to happen behind bars? Hold on, Sydney, you're the reporter. Let me go to a shrink on this. Dr. Bethany Marshall, that's why you don't have freak-offs, because you don't want to be in MDC. I wouldn't do anything, as much as I'd like to at times, to jeopardize being with my children every night, making their dinner, getting them to school, all that. Why? I want to be with them. That's more important than anything else. How could he whine about MDC? He should have thought about that the last 30 years he's been raping women, according to the state.
Well, according to the state. Nancy, he put such enormous energy into stalking, raping, violating women. If he had just put that energy into his relationships with his children, can you imagine what fantastic lives they would have? Now, he's in prison at the bottom of the food chain, and we know these sociopaths, they like to relate to others on the basis of power, not affection. He has power over everybody in his civilian life. Nancy, he's not going to have power over anybody in that prison. There are a lot of men with a lot of testosterone, a lot of aggression, an axe to grind, who are just going to be there right on top of him.
I don't get it. Lynn Shaw, am I supposed to care that Diddy's got a TT into a metal urinal? I don't care.
None of us are supposed to care, because think about the prison, the jails all of his victims have been living in and continue to live in. And I want to keep the focus again. First of all, I'm a New Yorker. As far as I'm concerned, the Manhattan Detention Center is too good of a place for this Pimp Daddy. That was his street name since the 90s, Pimp Daddy. Remember, we have worked at the Warriors with women who have come up as teenage girls through this whole rap music. Right? It started as hip hop, then it was rap music, and they have reported these things about him and his entourage for decades now. We don't care. Let him choke on a bad tuna fish sandwich. Let's think about the victims. Let's think about the survivors.
Well, you know what? We're talking about victims and sodomy victims alleged by the state, but don't forget the potential murder charge hanging out there. Listen.
Dwayne Keefe D. Davis claims credit for Tupac's murder on BET and in his memoir. He says Puffy Combs wanted Knight and Tupac's heads after their diss track Hit 'Em Up. When Davis offers to carry out the hits, Combs agrees to pay him $1 million.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs.
You know, this would never have happened in my mind if it had not been for Cassie Ventura, who had the guts to sue Combs, and then the video leaked. Nobody wanted to believe that their friend Combs, he's been snugged up with, Hillary Clinton. He's been snugged up with Donald Trump. He's been snugged up with Ashton Kutcher, with J-Lo, of course, with every star, so many stars, Bieber, 50, you name it. But no one wanted to stand up for these victims. None of these celeb friends, they all went quiet. You remember when Weinstein was charged with? Oh, that was an outcry like no other. But now, when it's their friend, Sean Puffy Combs, nobody's saying a word. Well, guess what? We are. And his defense attorney ain't helping anything with statements like this. Listen.
In response to prosecutors' argument that the footage from the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles is critical evidence displaying Combs' physical danger and his effort to obstruct, defense attorney Mark Agnifilo says the attack had nothing to do with trafficking, and Cassandra Ventura started that altercation, hitting Combs in the head with her cell phone while he was asleep. Agnifilo claims Ventura left the hotel room after learning Combs was dating another woman, not because she was fleeing a freak-off.
And he went on to say, this is Combs' lawyer, defense lawyer, that she should have been grateful for all the opportunities that he gave her, that it was a loving relationship. You know, I don't get it, Dr. Bethany. How do you derive enjoyment from beating your victims, drugging them, posing them in all sorts of positions, and videoing them getting?
Well, Nancy, one aspect of this crime that we haven't yet addressed is his sadism. You know, he's really a mean, sadistic person. Not only does he want to have power over his victims, he wants to see them in pain. He wants to see them rendered helpless. He wants to see them in compromising, humiliating positions. This is his MO. And the fact that he did not face consequences earlier in his life means that the sadism, this kind of perverse sadism, just flourished in his life.
You know, just imagine it if you let your mind go this far. Bethany, can you just see him directing these women who were passed out? Many of them had no idea they were given drugs, and positioning them in Combs, getting directly involved in positioning their bodies in all sorts of sex positions for then a sex worker to the woman, and she has no idea what's going on. And then Combs would threaten to leak those videos to who? Her husband? Her family? I don't know. That's what we're talking about. Earlier I said that the defense is deluded. I really think Combs is deluded, and that is not a defense under our law. Listen.
Wherever he is, his resolve is the same. He believes he's innocent. I believe he's innocent. And we're going to fight this case with all of our might until we don't have to fight any longer.
You were just hearing Agnifilo, Combs' lawyer, who insists that Combs believes he's innocent. You know, many people argue that O.J. Simpson actually thought he didn't do it. At some point, he had said the story so many times, he actually started believing it. I disagree. I think he and Combs knows. They knew. Simpson knew. Combs knows. He's not innocent. It's easy to delude yourself that you didn't do anything wrong. He did, and he knows it. And I want to be very clear. There have been 2 judges involved in these rulings, and they had to stand up to a lot of money and a lot of pressure from various sectors regarding the bond decision. To Sydney Sumner joining us, crimeonline.com investigative reporter. There were two judges. First, one judge said no. Then the defense attorney demanded another hearing on bond, and he got it. Tell me about the two judges, one a man, one a woman.
Nancy, so that judge that first saw Combs for his arraignment was Judge Robin Tarnowski. That's our female judge. And she shut that bail down so quick. She had to let arguments go on, but she spent about 20 minutes in her chambers with pretrial services, came out and immediately denied that bail proposition. Wednesday, they appeared in front of Judge Andrew Carter, who heard many of the same arguments with more information coming out. And I loved this from Judge Andrew Carter. While Agnifilo is trying to argue that the video in the Intercontinental Hotel is a result of two very passionate people who are very in love, Judge Andrew Carter responds, "What's love got to do with that?" referring to that video. And again, denied that bail proposition right off the bat.
I want you to hear this. After the Cassie Ventura video came out, Combs released his own video talking about how he had hit rock bottom, that he takes full responsibility for his actions, and talks about how sorry he is, and it was difficult to reflect on the darkest times of his life. But at the same time, he was trying to tamper with witnesses and get them to change their stories. Victims changing their stories. Listen.
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life, but sometimes you got to do that. I was up. I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called
freak-offs. Freak-offs? Freak-offs? Freak-offs.
Freak-offs.
Sean Puffy Combs, a.k.a. Diddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy, I'll see you in court. I can tell you that's right. Now we are learning about how the state's going to actually prove this case. It won't be a surprise to you legal eagles. Listen.
When asked if there is a possibility for more arrests, U.S. Attorney Damian Williams answers, quote, "Nothing is off the table." The indictment against Combs mentions numerous members of business staff, security, household staff, personal assistants, and high-ranking supervisors that facilitated Combs' crimes, but does not mention any specific names. Williams could not put an exact number to the amount of people victimized by Combs, emphasizing that the investigation is still ongoing.
Straight out to Tim Jansen joining us. You see what they're doing right there, right? They're naming all of these enablers, facilitators, who are either going to be co-defendants in their own right or witnesses. They can pick. And nobody say there's anything wrong with that, because there's not. The state can choose to charge them, not charge them and take their testimony and give them a cheap deal. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is they're not ruling out more arrests, Jansen.
So here's what's not being said. The reason the government wants him in custody is because of the power and control he has over the organization. Once he's in custody, now they can go to these people who were reluctant to come forward, offer them witness protection program for them to come in and be and show and prove what these victims are saying. This could really make this case against him much stronger, and it can spread the case to other co-conspirators who are now going to be fending for themselves.
Fending for themselves, true. I don't know that anybody wants to go into the Witness Protection Act. That's not any fun. Herb Brandt, did you hear? Herb Brandt traveled the world for the U.S. Marshal Service, bringing in felons that got out on bond and took off like a bounty hunter, but works for the government. What do you make of the state saying they are not ruling out more arrests? I'm telling you, that's how they're going to make this case.
It's not surprising, Nancy. This is a very complex case, and when you're talking about RICO, You're talking about an ongoing criminal organization. RICO was basically brought in to dismantle the mob and their hierarchy. And same thing with this case. They want to go after everyone involved, everyone that enabled Sean Combs to participate in these activities. They want to bring them to justice also. So I'm not surprised by the prosecution's statements that more arrests may be coming.
We understand that the judges both thought that there was a very strong chance that Sean Puffy Combs would flee the jurisdiction. Irv Brandt, that's your specialty. What do you believe Combs would have done if one of these judges had granted him bond?
Oh, he would have been gone, Nancy. I have no doubt that he had a plan in his mind. If he could get out, no matter what the conditions, GPS monitoring, house arrest, intensive supervision, he has the financial means to disappear. And I'm sure that was his plan because he's looking at so much time on these charges.
I'm telling you, Anna Delvey, who was a star of a cable documentary, is on Dancing with the Stars right now with her ankle bracelet. Her monitor is bedazzled when she dances on the floor. You want to tell me we wouldn't find Diddy's cut off and lying on the runway, the airstrip at Teterboro? That's where we would find that. Straight back out to Angelica Martinez joining us in front of the jail, MDC. I understand that Combs has a status hearing on October the 9th. We'll get to see him again on October the 9th out of his special housing unit there at MDC.
Yes, that is correct, Nancy. So his next hearing is slated for October 9th, and until then, he will be behind us in this Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, where I don't know if you can hear, there all morning there have been inmates seemingly brawling or some very disturbing noises coming from just behind me right there in those fences. We can hear presumably officers trying to get everything under control. So this is where Combs will be spending his time until October 9th.
We wait as justice unfolds, and we pray it rains down like a flood. Now we stop to remember American hero, police officer Sierra Burton, just 28, shot and killed in the line of duty, survived by wife Sierra, K-9 partner Brev. Officer Burton killed just 9 days before her wedding. American hero, police officer Sierra Burton. Thank you to all of our guests. Can you imagine what it would have meant if Combs had gotten bond? What it would mean to all of the victims, all of the abuse victims in the past, the present, and those yet to come. Nancy Grace signing off. I'll see you tomorrow night, 6 and 9 o'clock sharp Eastern. And until then, good night, friend. Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. If you're on the go, catch us on your favorite podcast app where you can get all of our content where we, in our own way, seek justice.